So, as promised, here are my final thoughts on ReCore, or mostly final, and I say that for a reason. ReCore, at its core, is a great concept, pardon the pun. It's got amazing visual design, really impressive graphics, except for some horizon pop ins that could have been covered up with some sand haze, but I think they wanted that depth in the background to try to be a beauty piece. The platforming is probably the highlight of the game. The combat is good enough, although it did have room for improvement in that the combat in tight spaces was exceptionally frustrating. I felt like it was more luck than skill getting through some of those places because you were just bombarded by enemies, and if a couple of them jumped you from behind, well, you were screwed. If they didn't do that, good for you. The sound was good. The music was just enough. The voice acting was kind of predictable, but decent enough. And the coolest thing for me was the sound of the weapons. Every weapon had a slightly different firing sound, so it was easier to tell which type of ammo you were using. And unfortunately, the game suffers, and suffers badly, for three main things that I can see. And these are guesses to an extent, but they are educated guesses based on what I've seen. The Xbox One, is just not powerful enough to play this game. On a high-end PC, I'm sure the excruciatingly long load times will be reduced, and the lag in certain areas will probably not be as severe as well, and the lag definitely hampered the combat to an extent. Now, I say maybe because the lag is inconsistent. Some levels run very, very cleanly. Others don't. And the unfortunate part is the level that is the most laggy is the one you're likely going to spend the most time in. The other thing I feel about this game, and it's just a gut instinct having reviewed games for a really long time, is that this game suffered from an insufficient budget and insufficient playtesting. It's a solid concept. It should have been a bigger game. It could have been a bigger story, though I felt like it didn't need it. The story is not the reason to play this game. There's almost nothing new here. The reason to play this game is the solid gameplay, and the problem is that the load times and the lag get in the way of that. There are parts that are legitimately challenging, and I'd say that was great, were it not for the fact that I spend 2 minutes waiting for the level to reload, die in combat or miss a platforming jump, and then I have to wait 2 minutes for it to reload again. And this is tragic because Xbox could have had a really solid exclusive IP on its hands, and they rushed it. I don't know why they didn't push this game back an extra 3 months to get it out the door good instead of getting it out the door fast, but it's very disappointing that they made this decision because the robot characters are freaking adorable. The design sense in this game is excellent, and it was nice to play a game that wasn't easy, but wasn't, a Dark Souls game either. There were moments that were difficult enough, and I did so much strafing that it felt like Dark Souls at times, but it doesn't quite come to that level of frustrating challenge. But that's the other issue of it. Who's it for? The super cuteness could lure in people who might sample Xbox games who otherwise haven't, but they're going to be put off by the difficulty. And hardcores, the cuteness is not going to be enough. That would be great in a digital animation. It would be great if the load times didn't suck, But as it is now, graphics alone, as we know, don't sell a game. Gameplay sells the game. And as I said, there's nothing wrong with the gameplay itself. What's wrong is the game's not polished in a technical sense. And all that needed was time and perhaps 10 to 15% more budget. Just enough time to give it a few more iterations, to get it play tested a few more times so that it could go, gee, if you can't see the extraction minigame, then it's really no good. Again, that happens much more often earlier in the game than later on. And it's disappointing because the least satisfying part of the game is the second quarter of it, which is a crucial part of a game in terms of player retention and completion rates. So, it's a great idea. It's almost a really good game. It just lacks that polish. And I'm really glad I don't work for a website that makes me assign a number to this anymore, because I really don't know what to say. In some ways, it's incredible. If you're a platformer fan, it's almost worth suffering through the really long load times. You can check your email, that's the time to use the washroom, that sort of thing. But not quite. Not quite. And okay, it's a lower cost than a fully AAA game. It's only like $40 in Canada or something like that. So it's not a full price game. The map is kind of small, so if you're one of these people who wants a lot of exploration, there isn't that. It's basically a big circle that you go around a few times looking for these prismatic cores. The concerns I had early on about the female playable character simply as an extension of her father's wishes, that didn't go away, and it was compounded by this sort of a pawn in a much bigger game kind of storyline. You go through the whole game not really knowing who Jewel is, not really knowing who Kai is, and those are the two people you see in the flesh. It's the BioShock contagion, where BioShock worked great as a retroactively told dystopian story. And so many other games where, hey, it worked for BioShock, we're going to do it too. And do that at your own peril, developers, because it doesn't always work. Especially if you're going to go third person, if you're going to go first person and the main character is just a cipher that the player inhabits and the game happens around it, you can absolutely do that. No problem, because who cares about the playable character's hopes and dreams? It's just a camera with arms and legs that you use to put yourself in the world. But when you're going third person, I want to have a relationship with that character that I'm making move. I want to know what he or she wants to do. I want to know what their aspirations are, because that's a great way to tell me how to play the game. And at first, I thought, this is a really well-designed character. Jewel benefits from her lithe stature because she spends a lot of time off the ground. She has these, booster boots that propel her in a way that a bulkier character wouldn't do so well. But then there are other things about the design that kind of overleaped itself in its cleverness, in that she's exploring a desert, has exposed shoulders, and there's obvious dark freckling on those shoulders, which is an indication of sun damage. I'm a ginger, guys. I notice these things. Why aren't her shoulders covered in the desert? She's got her face covered, but not her shoulders. This makes no practical sense in terms of design. It looks cool, but every time I saw sort of a close-up on those sun-damaged shoulders, I'm like, she's gonna get cancer. She probably has cancer, and she's maybe 19 years old. And that, like it or not, threw me out of the game because I was really pulling for this character to work, but there wasn't enough thought in it. If you go and put a detail in a character, And you're not going completely absurd in the way that anime does with, 16 rings when you only have 10 fingers and this crazy hair. If you're gonna go totally displaced fantasy, I don't care. It doesn't have to make sense. It's magic, yay. But the minute you start bordering on realistic, these are the questions a player's gonna ask, and you better have answers for that. So, overall, ReCore is a great idea. I would hope that it sells well enough to get a sequel with a better production framework. I'm not sure about that, though, because they dumped it out only a week before Forza Horizon 3, and that's a much bigger exclusive game for Xbox. I wish they'd put this one out earlier so we had more time with it. So, what it comes down to is if you love platforming so much that you are willing to suffer through some, really long load times and some other not so great things in terms of technical optimization, there are 3 or 4 absolutely masterful platforming levels in this game. They were a joy to play, as difficult as they were. You felt an intense amount of satisfaction when you finished them, at least I did. Now, if you're a big combat person, some of the comments says it looks like Ratchet and Clank or Dexter and Jax. No, it is not like that at all. Those games are known for a large amount of weapon choice and a lot of run and gun gameplay. It is not that. It may look like that, but most of the tanking that goes on in a battle is done by your robot companion. If you try to mix it up toe-to-toe, you will get slaughtered. So don't play this game if you want to run and gun. Play it if you want an attack from a distance shooter style combined with really cool platforming. And it's one of these games where you cycle through the same levels looking for different stuffs. So it's got that retro feel as well. But if lag really annoys you, skip it. It's undeniable. Unless they come up with a patch that fixes that problem. And if really long load times drive you crazy, this game will infuriate you. And it's too bad that those are 2 of my 3 biggest complaints with this game, because those were addressable by just giving the game more time to be polished. That is a production problem, not a design problem. Now, what's my 3rd issue? It's a very specific part of the game in that there is a point where there is no objective marker on the map. And I burned a huge amount of time trying to find this gate, and it's fairly early on in the game, so I didn't really understand the game well enough to dope it out, and it was so frustrating. And again, more playtesting would have caught that problem. More playtesting would have caught that issue with the extraction mechanic, with the tug of war being obscured by bad locked off camera placement in places. And it's another example of how rushing games out the door and an infatuation with secrecy is hurting otherwise potentially lucrative, well-designed, well-conceived video game properties. I would be interested in more of this world. I would be interested in actually getting to know Jewel as a character, because I don't feel like I got to know her in this game. And I'd want more adorable robots. My favorite character in this whole game is a character called Violet, who is this psycho little purple, cute, some version of Japanese speaking fast travel bot. Fast travel being ironic because it's not very fast, but she's hilarious. And the animal-like robots are super cute, and Seth is super cute in that he's terrified of everything, even though he's a spider, because people are usually afraid of spiders. Best spider's afraid of you. But it just doesn't overcome the lack of polish, the lack of optimization, considering I still haven't had a chance to play Deus Ex. Gears of War is coming out soon. Forza Horizon is out if you like racing games. This is holiday. This is competitive. And they should have pushed it to Q1. Or this is a game that would have done better Q2. You know, that summer, that late summer where very little else is out. I think this game could have done quite well then, when the aficionados who remember when games were hard and like platforming are looking for something to play. There isn't very much else out. That's when I think the ideal release date for this game would have been, like right before E3 2017. I don't know why they pushed it out now, other than to show, look, female playable character in our holiday lineup. And game after game after game in terms of sales, whether it be Mirror's Edge Catalyst, Rise of Tomb Raider, and so on, have shown that spunky girl power just isn't enough.